Nobody remembered when Daniel Webb had arrived on Harmony Station. He was simply there like the pipes in the walls or the hum of the air recyclers. A 52-year-old human with gray at his temples and hands that knew how to fix things. He ate alone. He worked alone. He spoke only when spoken to, and even then, his answers were short. The other staff walked past him without seeing him. That was fine. Daniel preferred it that way. Harmony Station floated in the quiet space between two shipping lanes, far from any planet. It existed for one purpose: to house the children nobody else wanted. Alien orphans from a dozen different wars, a dozen different species. Some had lost families to bombs, others to disease. A few had simply been left behind when their people fled dying worlds. Meera Okonkwo ran the children's wing. She was 34, kind, and permanently exhausted. She did her best, but there were 63 children and only so many hours in a day in December of 2387. A cultural exchange package arrived from Earth. Books mostly. Stories about human holidays and traditions. One book explained something called Christmas and a figure named Santa Claus. The children became obsessed. They asked Meera 100 questions. Why did Santa give gifts? How did he know what children wanted? Could he visit space stations? Could he visit aliens? Meera explained that Santa was a story. A nice idea. A tradition where children wrote letters about their wishes and parents tried to make those wishes come true. The children did not hear the part about parents. They only heard that you could write letters to Santa and he would try to help. Within a week, Meera had a stack of 40 letters on her desk. She read the first few and had to stop. They broke her heart. These were not letters asking for toys or candy. These were letters from children who had lost everything. Their wishes were impossible. Their hope was painful to witness. Meera planned to write gentle responses explaining that Santa was just a symbol, a nice thought. She would let them down softly. She left the letters on her desk and went to bed. That night, Daniel Webb was fixing a broken air vent in the administration wing. The work took him past Myra's office. The door was open. The letters sat in a neat pile under a small lamp. Daniel did not mean to read them, but he saw the first one, written in shaky standard by a small hand, and he could not look away. The first letter was from Pim, a Varadi child who was 6 years old in human terms. Varadi had 4 arms and blue-gray skin. Pim had arrived at the station 2 years ago after his entire colony was destroyed. His letter said, "Dear Santa, my mother used to sing to me every night. I am forgetting what her voice sounded like. I wish I could hear it one more time. I will be good forever if you can do this." Daniel sat down in Myra's chair. He read the next letter. It was from twin Drenari children named Suli and Tavi. They were 8 years old. Their homeworld had been burned by solar flares. They were the only survivors from their city. Their letter said, "Dear Santa, our planet had a purple sky with 3 small moons. We used to watch them every night with our parents. We are scared we are forgetting what it looked like. Can you show us our sky again? Just one more time." Daniel's hand was shaking now. He read the next letter. Old Ren was a Gathri child, 11 years old. His species came from a high-gravity world. The station's lighter gravity was slowly destroying his bones. He was in constant pain. His letter said, "Dear Santa, I wish for real gravity. My body hurts all the time. The doctors say there is nothing they can do. I just want to walk without pain." Even for one day, Daniel wiped his eyes. He read the last letter in the stack. The IT was from the youngest child on the station, a Tilani girl named B. She was 4 years old. Her species bonded through presence, through staying close to those they loved. She had lost her entire family. In 2 years, she had been assigned to 17 different caretakers. Each one had left eventually. Her letter was the shortest. "Dear Santa, I wish for someone to not leave." Daniel sat in that dark office for a very long time. He thought about his own daughters, Sophie and Lily, who had died 7 years ago when the dome collapsed on Proxima Colony. He thought about his wife, Grace, who had died trying to save them. He had spent 7 years being invisible because invisible things could not be hurt again. But these children were hurting right now, and their wishes were not impossible. Not really. They just needed someone to try. Daniel took out his personal tablet. one by one. He photographed each letter. He did not sleep that night. By morning, he had a plan. 7 years of silence had made Daniel very good at being alone. But loneliness, he realized, was different from being alone. Loneliness was a weight. Alone was just a fact. He had carried that weight since Proxima, since the dome cracked, since he had been outside checking power lines while his family died inside. The rescue teams found him 3 days later, still digging through rubble with his bare hands. After that, he stopped teaching, stopped talking, stopped feeling that he moved from station to station, fixing pipes and vents and broken machines. Machines were simple. They broke, and you repaired them. They did not love you. They did not leave you. They did not die in collapsed domes while you stood outside, helpless. But these letters, these impossible, heartbreaking letters, Daniel could not ignore them. He started with Pym's wish. The Verratti child wanted to hear his mother's voice. The colony where Pym's family had lived was destroyed, but Daniel knew that refugees sometimes carried recordings. Old messages, personal files. He searched the station's database for Verratti cultural preservation societies. He found one, a small group dedicated to saving what remained of lost Verratti communities. He sent them a message explaining what he was looking for. They replied within a day. They had fragments, damaged recordings from refugee ships. Nothing complete, but they would search. Daniel moved to the twins' wish. Sully and Tavi wanted to see their homeworld's purple sky. The planet was gone, burned by its own sun, but the data existed. Spectral readings, atmosphérique composition. The exact color of that sky was written in scientific papers somewhere. Daniel had not spoken to Dr. Amara Diallo in 6 years. She was an astronomer on Earth, an old friend from before Proxima. She had tried to reach out after his family died. He had never responded. Now he sent her a message. He explained what he needed. He did not apologize for the silence. She responded in an hour. I have the data. I will send everything. It is good to hear from you, Daniel. Old Wren's wish was harder. The Guthrie boy needed real gravity. The station's medical staff had no solution. Gravity generators existed, but they were expensive and required significant power. Daniel began spending his nights in a small maintenance bay on the station's lower level. It was in use, forgotten. He started reinforcing the walls, running calculations, planning something that should not be possible, that he would need help. He could not build a gravity room alone. And then there was B, little B, who only wanted someone to stay. That wish required no technology. It required something much harder. IT required Daniel to open his heart again, that he was not ready for that. Not yet, but he kept working. 2 weeks into his project, Meera found him. IT was 3 in the morning. Daniel was in the station's archive room, pulling old files on Drenari atmospheric science. Meera appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, tired but curious. What are you doing? She asked. Inventory, Daniel said. Just checking equipment records. Meera did not believe him. Daniel could see in her eyes. But she did not push. You have been different lately, she said. More focused, less like a ghost. Daniel had no answer for that. Meera left, but she kept watching him. She noticed when he stayed late. She noticed when he skipped meals to work. She noticed when he smiled, just slightly, while reading something on his tablet. 3 weeks before Christmas, Daniel made a decision. He could not do this alone. The gravity room needed engineers. The holographic sky needed programming help. The search for Pym's mother's voice needed more hands. That he needed to ask for help. He had not asked anyone for anything in 7 years. He went to Myra's office at midnight. She was still awake, buried in paperwork. He stood in the doorway for a long moment before she looked up. I need to show you something, he said. He handed her the letters. All 40 of them. She read them slowly, her expression changing with each one. When she finished, her eyes were wet. These are impossible, she whispered. And oh, Daniel said. They're just difficult. Meera looked at him, really looked at him. For the first time since he had arrived on this station, someone saw him. What do you need? She asked. Daniel sat down across from her. And for the first time in 7 years, he started talking. They met in Daniel's cramped quarters because it was the only place on the station where nobody would look. 6 people crowded into a room built for one, sitting on the bed, the floor leaning against walls. Meera had recruited carefully. Dr. Pavel Antonov, the station's medical officer. Yuki Tanaka, the communications specialist. Two engineers named Foster and Rashid. And Dr. Lena Marsh, who studied how alien children adjusted to life away from their homeworlds. Daniel stood in the center of them all, holding his tablet. "That I know this sounds crazy." He began. "That IT does," said Foster, the older of the two engineers. His arms were crossed. He looked skeptical. "Let me finish," Daniel said. "Then you can decide if you want to help." He showed them the letters. He read them aloud, one by one. Pim's wish for his mother's voice. The twins' wish for their purple sky. Ren's wish for gravity that did not hurt him. BEA's wish for someone who would stay. When he finished, the room was quiet. "These children have lost everything," Daniel said. "They wrote letters to a story. A myth. They do not expect anything to happen. But what if it did? What if, just once, the universe was kind to them?" Foster uncrossed his arms. His skepticism had melted into something softer. "What do you need?" he asked. Daniel smiled. It felt strange on his face. They divided the work. Yuki took Pim's wish. The Varadi Cultural Preservation Society had found something. A 3-minute recording from a refugee transport. A woman singing a lullaby. The file was corrupted, broken into fragments, but it existed. "The IT will take time," Yuki said, studying the data. "The audio is damaged. I will have to rebuild it piece by piece." "How long?" Daniel asked. 40 hours, maybe more. "But I can do it." Foster and Rashid took the twins' wish. Dr. Diallo's atmospheric data had arrived. They had everything they needed to recreate the Drenari sky. The problem was display. "There is an old holographic projector in storage," Rashid said. "It has been broken for years. Nobody bothered to fix it." "Can you fix it?" Daniel asked. Rashid grinned. "I can fix anything." Doctor Antonov took Ren's wish. The Guthrie boy's bones were deteriorating because his body had evolved for 3 times the station's gravity. There was no cure, but there was relief. "A localized gravity generator," Antonov said slowly. "We need to find one. They are not cheap." Foster cleared his throat. "There is one in the cargo hold. It was meant for the mining outpost on Kellner 7. But the shipment was delayed. It is just sitting there. We cannot steal station equipment," Meera said. Foster shrugged. "Who said anything about stealing? Equipment gets lost in inventory all the time. Bureaucratic errors happen." Everyone looked at him. "What?" he said. "I have been fixing bureaucratic errors for 30 years. I know how to unfind things." That left BEA's wish. The room went quiet again. Everyone understood that this one was different. There was no machine that could give a child what she needed. No technology that could promise someone would stay. Daniel looked at the floor. "I am working on that one," he said. "Give me time." They spent the next 3 weeks building miracles. Yuki worked through the nights, reconstructing the lullaby one fragment at a time. The voice emerged slowly from the static. A mother singing to her child. Words in a language that only a few hundred Varadi still remembered. Foster and Rashid rebuilt the projector in a storage room, testing it again and again until the colors were perfect. The first time they activated it, the room filled with purple light. 3 small moons hung in the air, exactly as they had hung over a world that no longer existed. Daniel and Antonov worked on the gravity room. They reinforced the walls. They installed the generator. They calibrated it carefully, making sure the gravity would be strong enough to help but not strong enough to hurt. Through it all, Station Administrator Hollis noticed nothing. Or if he noticed, he did not interfere. Maybe he was too busy. Maybe he did not care what happened in forgotten maintenance bays and dusty storage rooms. On December 23rd, everything was ready. Daniel stood in the converted maintenance bay. The gravity generator hummed softly. The holographic projector waited in the corner. Somewhere in Yuki's quarters, a mother's voice was ready to sing again. "Tomorrow," Daniel whispered to the empty room. "Tomorrow, we give them Christmas." He did not sleep that night. He sat in the darkness and thought about a little Tilani girl who just wanted someone to stay. He thought about his daughters. About Grace. About 7 years of hiding from love because love could hurt you. But hiding hurt too. He understood that now. Tomorrow, he would have to decide if he was brave enough to stop hiding. 40 children gather in the main hall, confused and curious. Meera had told them only that there was a special presentation about Earth traditions. They sat in clusters by species, some fidgeting, some whispering, all wondering why this could not wait until after breakfast. Luby sat alone in the back, her three-fingered hands folded in her lap. She did not expect anything. She had stopped expecting things a long time ago. The door at the far end of the hall opened. Daniel Webb walked in. The children barely recognized him. Not because he looked different. He wore the same work clothes as always, though someone had given him a red sweater that was slightly too big. But something in his face had changed. He was not invisible anymore, that he walked to the front of the room and knelt down, so he was at eye level with the smallest children. "I read your letters," he said. His voice was soft but steady. "The letters you wrote to Santa." A murmur ran through the children. They looked at each other. They looked at Meera, who stood by the wall with tears already forming in her eyes. "I cannot do magic," Daniel continued. "I am just a maintenance worker. I fix broken things. But I want to try." He held out his hand toward the door. "Pim, would you come here?" The Varadi boy stood slowly. His four arms hung at his sides. He walked toward Daniel with hesitant steps, unsure what was happening. Daniel pulled a small device from his pocket. It was nothing special, just a basic audio player. But what it held was priceless. "Someone found your mother," Daniel said. "Not all of her, but her voice. She was recorded on a refugee ship, singing a lullaby." Pim's eyes went wide. Daniel pressed the button. The voice that filled the room was scratchy with static and age. But it was real. A Varadi woman, singing softly in a language most of the galaxy had forgotten. A lullaby about stars and sleep and a mother's love that would never end. Pim did not move. He did not breathe. He stood frozen as 3 minutes of song washed over him. When it ended, his four arms wrapped around the device. He clutched it to his chest like it was the most precious thing in the universe. A sound escaped him. Not a word, not a cry. Something deeper than language. The other children watched in silence. Some of them were crying. They did not fully understand what was happening, but they understood that it mattered. Daniel let Pim hold the recording for a long moment. Then he spoke again, Suli. "Tavi, will you come with me?" The twin Drenari children stood together, as they always did. Their scaled hands found each other as they followed Daniel to a corner of the room where a strange machine waited. "This is a holographic projector," Daniel explained. "Some friends helped me fix it. We programmed it with data from your home world." He pressed a switch. The room transformed. Purple light filled the space. Deep, rich purple like nothing the other children had ever seen. And there, hanging in the artificial sky, were 3 small moons. They glowed softly, exactly as they had glowed over a world that was gone. The twins looked up. Their grips on each other tightened. "We thought we forgot," Suli whispered. Her voice cracked. "We were so scared we forgot." "You did not forget," Daniel said. "And now you never will." They stood under that purple sky for a long time. Other children gathered around them, looking up at moons from a world none of them had known, sharing in a grief and a beauty that belonged to everyone. Daniel waited. Then he spoke again. Rin, the Gatheri boy, stood with difficulty. His movements were stiff and painful, as they always were. He limped toward Daniel, each step a small battle. "Follow me," Daniel said. "I have something to show you." They walked out of the main hall and down a corridor. The other children followed. They came to a door marked maintenance. Authorized personnel only. Daniel opened it. Inside was a small room with reinforced walls. A generator hummed in the corner. The air felt different here. Heavier. "This is a gravity room," Daniel said. "It is set to your homeworld's level. It will not heal you. But while you are in here, you will not hurt." Ren stepped inside. His first step was careful. His second was stronger. By his third step, something changed in his face. The permanent tightness around his eyes loosened. The pain he had carried for years simply stopped. He took another step, and another. Then here, end at IT was only a few meters. The room was small, but Ren ran across it, turned, and ran back. He laughed, actually laughed, a bright, joyful sound that none of the station staff had ever heard from him. The children cheered. They crowded around the doorway. Watching Ren move freely for the first time in their memory, Daniel watched too. He smiled, but his eyes kept moving to the back of the group, where a small Tilani girl stood apart from everyone else. Her turn was coming, and it was the one that scared him most. Daniel found Bee sitting in a quiet corner while the other children celebrated. She had not joined the crowd around Ren. She had not touched the holographic projector. She simply sat, watching, her large dark eyes taking everything in but expecting nothing for herself. He sat down next to her. Not too close. Tilani children needed space until they chose to close it. You wrote a letter too? Daniel said. Bee nodded. Her three-fingered hands twisted together in her lap. You wished for someone to not leave. Another nod. Smaller this time. Daniel was quiet for a moment. In the distance, he could hear Ren laughing again. He could hear Pim playing his mother's lullaby for the third time. The sounds of children being happy. It had been a long time since he had heard sounds like that. I had 2 daughters, he said finally. His voice was barely above a whisper. Their names were Sophie and Lily. He looked up at him. They died 7 years ago, Daniel continued. My wife Grace died too. I was not there. I was outside, working, and when I came back they were gone. The words hurt. They always hurt. But he kept talking. After that, I stopped talking to people. I stopped caring about things. I thought if I did not love anything, I could not lose anything. I thought being invisible would keep me safe. Bee was watching him now. Really watching. Her dark eyes saw more than a child's eyes should. But it does not work, Daniel said. Hiding does not stop the pain. It just makes you alone with it. He turned to face her fully. I read your letter, Bee. You want someone who will not leave. And I understand why. You have had 17 caretakers in 2 years. Every single one of them left. They got transferred. They burned out. They moved on. And every time one of them left, it hurt you a little more. Ba's hands stopped twisting. She went very still. I cannot promise nothing bad will ever happen, Daniel said. I cannot promise I will live forever. The universe is not that kind. He took a breath. This was a hard part. The terrifying part. But I can promise that I will never choose to leave you. If you want me to stay, I will stay. Not because it is my job. Not because someone told me to. Because I choose to. Bee did not move. Did not speak. Daniel waited. He had said everything he could say. Now it was up to her. A long moment passed. Then, slowly, Bee extended her hand. Her 3 small fingers uncurled toward him. In Tilani culture, this meant something important. It was an invitation. A request. A beginning. Daniel took her hand. Bee leaned into him. Her small body pressed against his side. She did not cry. She did not speak. She just held on, like someone who had finally found solid ground after years of falling. Across the room, Meera watched. Tears ran down her face. She had seen a lot of things in her years running this station. She had seen tragedy and loss and children who had suffered too much. But she had never seen anything like this. The other children noticed too. They drifted over one by one. Pim came first, still holding his mother's voice against his chest. He reached out and touched Daniel's shoulder with one of his 4 hands. The twins came next. They stood together as always, but now they stood beside Daniel too. Ren walked over from the gravity room. For once, he was not limping. He nodded at Daniel with the solemn respect that Gathary showed to those they trusted. More children gathered. Species that had nothing in common. Languages that did not translate. Histories of loss and pain and loneliness. But here, now, they were not alone. Word spread through the station. Staff members who had never visited the children's wing appeared at the door. They brought small gifts. Food from the kitchen. Time they did not have to spare. The celebration grew without anyone planning it. Dr. Antonov stood in the corner, pretending he was not crying. Yuki played the lullaby again. This time, everyone listened. Foster and Rashid kept the purple sky running, even though it was using more power than they had authorization for. In the middle of it all, Daniel sat with Ba's hand in his. He was not invisible anymore. He was not hiding. He was exactly where he needed to be. Then a shadow fell across the doorway. Station Administrator Hollis stood there, his face unreadable. He looked at the unauthorized gravity room. He looked at the power-hungry holographic projector. He looked at Daniel Webb, a maintenance worker who had somehow become the center of everything. Daniel stood up slowly, be still holding his hand. He was ready to fight, ready to defend every rule he had broken, every piece of equipment he had stolen, every hour of unauthorized activity. But Hollis did not look angry. He looked like someone who had just seen something he did not expect. Something that made him remember why he had taken this job in the first place. "That I came to find out what you were doing," Hollis said quietly. Now I know that he stepped into the room. "What do you need?" 1 year later, the maintenance bay had a new name. Someone had painted a sign above the door. The workshop. Inside, Daniel sat in a worn chair with Bee on his lap. She was 5 now, growing faster than he expected. Her adoption had been finalized 6 months ago, making him her legal guardian under both human and Tilani law. The paperwork had been simple. The commitment behind it was anything but. Around them, children from a dozen species sorted through a new pile of letters. This year, there were over 200. Word had spread to other stations, other refugee camps, other places where children had lost everything and wanted to believe in something kind. Pim organized the letters by species. He was 7 now, more confident than before. He still carried the recording of his mother's voice everywhere he went, but he no longer needed to play it every day. The memory was safe inside him. Suli and Tavi ran the holographic projector, which had been upgraded twice since last Christmas. They had learned to program it themselves. Last month, they recreated their grandmother's garden for a Drenari elder who was dying. The old woman had smiled for the first time in years. Old Ren was not so old anymore. The gravity room had become a permanent fixture, fully authorized by Hollis. Ren spent 2 hours there every day. His bones had stopped deteriorating. He would never be completely healthy, but he would never be in constant pain again. Now he helped Dr. Antonoff with medical duties, studying to become a doctor himself. The team had grown too. What started as 6 people working in secret had become an official station program. Foster and Rashid trained junior engineers to build gravity rooms for other stations. Yuki led a project to preserve dying languages, recovering voices and songs that would otherwise be lost forever. Dr. Marsh wrote papers about the healing power of fulfilled wishes, and other stations started their own programs based on her research. Hollis had changed too. The administrator who once cared only about budgets and schedules now fought for funding at every council meeting. He had become their greatest advocate. "We cannot fix everything," he said at one meeting when someone questioned the expense. "But we can fix some things." And some things mattered. On this December morning, a visitor arrived at Harmony Station. She was a Gathri diplomat named High Counselor Vin. She had come to see the program that everyone was talking about. The program where humans made impossible wishes come true. Daniel met her at the door of the workshop. Bee held his hand, as she always did when meeting strangers. The counselor looked around at the letters, the children, the machines that created small miracles. Her expression was difficult to read. "That I do not understand," she said finally. "These children are not your species. Many of them come from worlds that have been enemies of Earth. Their governments owe you nothing. They cannot pay you. They cannot help your career. Why do you do this?" Daniel thought about the question. He had heard it before from journalists and politicians and curious aliens who could not make sense of human behavior. That he looked at Bee, at Pim sorting letters, at the twins adjusting their projector, at Ren studying medical texts in the gravity room. Because they asked, he said simply. The counselor frowned. "Many people ask for things. That does not mean you must give them." Daniel shook his head. "That is not what I mean. They wrote letters to a story, to something they did not believe was real. They asked anyway, not because they thought it would work, but because hoping was all they had left. He knelt down so Bee could see his face. "When a child hopes like that," he continued, "when anyone hopes like that, it matters. It matters more than politics or money or whether their species was our enemy once. Someone small and scared and wishing for something is enough reason to try. It has always been enough." The counselor was quiet for a long moment. "That we used to think humans were dangerous because you could survive anything," she said slowly. "Your planet tried to kill you with ice and fire and disaster, and you refused to die. We thought that made you frightening." She looked at the children, at the letters. at the small miracles happening in this room, that we were wrong, she said. You're not dangerous because you survive. You are dangerous because you make others want to survive too. Daniel did not know what to say to that. He was just a maintenance worker. He fixed broken things. That was all, but he squeezed his hand. And Pym looked up from his letters with a smile. And somewhere in the back of the room, a holographic purple sky glowed softly over children who had lost their world but found something else instead. Maybe that was enough. Maybe it had always been enough. The counselor stayed for 3 hours. She helped sort letters. She listened to a mother's voice preserved from a dead colony. She watched a Gatheri boy run without pain. When she left, she took something with her. Not a recording or a hologram or a machine. She took a story about a quiet human who read some letters and decided to try. That story would spread across the galaxy. It would reach species who had never met humans. It would change how they saw the strange, stubborn, impossibly kind creatures from the deadly world called Earth. And every December, more letters would come. More children would hope, and someone would answer.